Well, welcome back to Watchbox and Watches Tonight. I'm your host, Tim Mosso. It's good to be here. This evening we are talking about soon-to-be dated watches, the eternal question, Rolex versus Omega, and my suggestion for collecting the 2000s. All of that and your viewer wrist shots. Remember, not only does thewatchbox.com pay for these pixels, but we are now broadcasting from thewatchbox.com, the place where I am, the best place to buy, trade, or sell watches with over 2,500 late model and pre-owned watches live right now. Don't forget, when the time comes to buy, Tim Mosso at thewatchbox.com, the direct purchase and pricing email specifically for your questions about watches you see on our site, on my Instagram, and on our flagship Watchbox Reviews channel. I'm also going to give you a free watch. I don't have a picture just yet, but I'm going to let one of you guys win a Tudor Black Bay Bronze. Link in the description. You got to be in it to win it. This is our Q1 giveaway, and I want it to go to a YouTuber. Jumping straight into viewer wrist shots. This is where we put your pieces on these pixels, starting with Karsten of Denmark, as he styles with his rose gold Lange 1815 chronograph and stylish pocket insert. Andrew K. of the UK showcases his Rolex Submariner on the Dawlish seafront, and Raphael C. frames Boracay Island Beach with his AP Royal Oak Offshore Diver. Andrew T. lords over the alley with his Rolex Submariner date in green. Guys, I love the wrist shots. Of course, you can continue to send them to mondaymailbag at thewatchbox.com, but I am offering bigger game, and the hunt has only just begun. I am looking for you guys to join me right here to discuss your collection, the milestone moments, the pieces you'll never sell, your philosophy of collecting, because the collector conversations are the best viewed features on this channel, and I want to make this channel all about you. I want to showcase your view of the world from inside of this box. Guys, sit with me. Let's talk a while. We're still in the casting call phase, but as the collections, the collectors, the names come in, we're starting to figure out who's going to be the first we contact. So remember, at mondaymailbag at thewatchbox.com, send me a sample of your collection, a little bit of why you enjoy watch collecting, just a sentence or two, and of course, please, we're pulling locally first from roughly Boston down to Washington, D.C., but soon this casting call will go global. Again, I want to sit here with you and talk watches. Jumping into the box, let's see who's here. We've got Yeti joining in from Sweden. We've got Xavier N joining in from Japan. We've got Miguel S joining in from San Juan, Puerto Rico. And then we've got Mark S joining from Brooklyn, a local boy, comparatively speaking. And we've got Franklin K. Howdy, amigos. Howdy, Franklin. We've got Geezer joining in from London. We've got Alexander Ritchie from Seattle. We've got Paul V also joining in from Seattle. Alan L. We've got Abdul from Germany. We've got Aaron C. joining from Melbourne, Australia, getting up early. And then, of course, we've got from the heartland of the United States, Kenneth M. from Wyoming and Zonda from Brazil. Guys, thank you so much for joining in live. Let's talk a little bit about a question that's often asked, because watches are forever. They will literally outlast all of us. A properly built mechanical watch is a lifetime purchase. It will transcend its generation, and thus, style is important. Does your watch have what it takes to go the distance? I'm pretty sure the following watches do not. First, let's recall that dated and unappealing are not synonymous. Just because some of these watches are going to look like products of their age, and yes, dated, in future periods of collecting and, shall we say, watch collector tastes, all the same, many machines we consider dated are actually profoundly cool and collectible. I would love to own a 1959 Cadillac Eldorado convertible or another Polaroid SX70 alongside the one I already have. And we need to look further than the watch hobby to realize that, or I should say we need to look no further than the watch hobby to realize that watches that are clearly of a period and dated remain incredibly cool, and we can realize just how true this is. Now let's also talk, by the way, lobster bracelet. You gotta love that, Vintage Omega fans. First and foremost, the 2008 Hublot King Power. The name said it all. When big was better, biggest was best. And at 48 millimeters, the King Power was just the beginning. The watch wore like it was over 50 millimeters. And associations with everything from motorsports to Olympic athletes sprouted from a marketing campaign as outlandish as the watch itself. A number of truly jaw-dropping iterations ensure that the King Power, already phased out by today's downsizing Hublot catalog, they're more and more about the classic fusion these days, will be remembered as the 1959 Cadillac of 2000s watches. If you want a formula for naming a watch built during the 2000s, basically take your favorite special warfare or tactical warfare unit, some sort of royal title, a natural disaster, and some sort of superlative. So let's start with the Emperor Awesome Special Warfare Craft Combatant Crewman Volcano Blast Bombast. That would be a 2008 watch. Now, jumping back into watches that may date slightly as we advance into the future, bronze was big in the 2010s, and the first of the bronze watches, the Panerai PAM 382 Bronzo, is an all-time great. It will be remembered as a fusion of art, imagination, and execution that was unsurpassed in its time. Its 10,000 derivatives and knockoffs will not be. Of those, the most egregious must be the 2018 model year IWC Big Pilot's Watch Bronze. IWC's 46mm tribute to Luftwaffe nostalgia had no dog in this fight, which is to say the bronze made no sense. It was a pairing of one thing that IWC thought was eye-catching and larger than life with something else, the bronze watch trend that appeared at the time to be a natural match for overblown, oversized watches. Well made and technically impressive, all the same, the combination feels forced, and I believe it will seem more so in 20 years when collectors start asking where all these weird bronze oversized sports watches came from. Not everything is better when it's supersized and bronzed at the same time. And clearly, IWC was looking enviously towards its Richemont stablemate over in Neuchâtel, and I'm speaking to you, Angelo Bonatti, because we know that IWC also made a giant bronze aqua timer, and that too felt a little bit forced, although with the nautical associations, maybe the bronze felt a bit more at home here. Moreover, the bronze IWC Big Pilot's watch was a limited edition of 1,500 pieces, only 1,500 pieces, at over $12,000, which seems almost as silly as Panerai's own endless iterations of its most significant watch of the last decade. We are now on Bronzo, what, number 3 at this point, I believe? JLC and its niche athlete editions. It was considered to be cool to iterate your most popular watch endlessly in small batches. Audemars Piguet laid down the template in the late 1990s with the Royal Oak Offshore End of Days, and as soon as the Hublot Big Bang hit the ground running at Basel World 2005, Hublot did the same. But I have to say that JLC went more niche than either of those. And both of these have to contend with the size issue of the King Power, but there is more to the story. First, the JLC Master Compressor World Alarm Valentino Rossi. Now, it's true that many guys love the 7-time Moto Grand Prix champion. He's been a beast at every mark for which he's driven since his 125cc days. And as a 7-time champion, he does carry some currency. All the same, a huge 46mm watch for a niche athlete might be too much watch. That is to say, we must love Rossi because these things exist, but not necessarily enough to wear him. He doesn't have the same kind of effortlessly cool association of, say, Juan Pablo Montoya or Michael Schumacher. Take away the motorcycle and he's kind of like me, an underfed, scrawny guy, and not all that sexy. So to buy one of these Valentino Rossi editions, you had to deal with that. But more, these things were poison to the Asian market at a period when sales in Asia were very important. How about a 4 and a 6 on the dial of your watch? No? Well, that's why these things were still selling new old stock 10 years later. And remember, these came out in 2007. There were 946 of them. A few too many? Probably about 900 too many. Second, the Emmanuel Coindre. It was a watch that was also a world's chronograph from the Master Compressor Extreme line, which is, say, 46 millimeters, very much of the 2000s. It was hip in its day, and this model, the world's chronograph, was JLC's answer to the Royal Oak Offshore, which means it was beautifully built and chock-a-block with features. But do you remember the guy who rowed across the Pacific Ocean in a kayak in 2005? No? Well, then you're probably not going to understand where these 30 watches came from. Actually, I believe it was 40 watches. 30 in steel and titanium, and then 10 in platinum. And you really had to be into kayaking to pay list for the platinum. Now here's the thing. Watches last forever, and all of these watches, including the JLCs, are still going to be around in the year 2050. Will we look at them as charming anachronisms, or will we look at them as hopelessly dated? As we saw earlier with the 1959 Cadillac, the Polaroid SX70, the Bulova Accutron, and the Omega lobster tail bracelets, sometimes dated is not a bad thing. And in the spirit of the grossly oversized Zenith El Primero TV screen of the 70s, I predict these will still be appealing, albeit very much period pieces to be worn as such. Jumping into the box right here, we've got Miko Stark saying that the lighting is way better, and I have to agree, it is far better right now. Joshua Polanski, a local boy and a Collector Conversation past, our most popular ever, joining in a little bit late. And then Yeko asking, who knows about the Nevrel 5-minute repeater? I can tell you that it's a solid piece, and if you're into 5-minute repeaters, over time, Breitling eventually, I think, bought Nevrel. They bought Kellick. But if you're looking for that repeater, you can find it in Chrono-Swiss products. And if you want a 5-minute repeater, I believe a Dubois de Praz 5-minute repeater has been used in Habring products. I think at first in their repeaters, Habring used the Nevrel, and then later I think they used the Dubois de Praz, but I know they used the DD on their current version of the striking watch, and Chrono-Swiss used the Nevrel. So if you want to buy a watch from a brand that's still going, that uses that movement or that complication and can service it, Chrono-Swiss is a good option, but please, 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 please buy it in steel. Don't pay for precious metal. Then right here, we've got Blue Shirt Buddha chiming in, nice new studio, Tim. And then we've got Thomas Burnett saying, I haven't heard of Nevrel for a while, because they're not around anymore. And what do you think of the Breitling Avenger GMT? I would like to purchase one. Breitling watches are solid. You know, the brand itself isn't cool right now, but that's the kind of thing that changes. These brands have been around for hundreds of years, and Breitling is on pretty firm financial footing with a strong management team, so it's not going anywhere. I'd say buy, but shop around. Get the watch with the full set, perfect condition. I would not go for a new old stock piece, because with Breitling, they build too many, there's a lot of inventory kicking around, and you don't want to buy a 10-year-old watch that's never been serviced. I would look for something that's relatively recent from a reputable seller with a warranty, either the seller's warranty or preferably Breitling factory. Don't run away from service warranties. A watch that's been serviced in the last 2 or 3 years is very much worth buying. With synthetic lubricants these days, watches typically go about 5-6 years between services. And then right here we've got El Diablo saying, just picked up my Jubilee bracelet Rolex GMT Master 2 Batgirl on Sunday, and I see he's on the list for a sub. And then we've got a question from Pilot Style 123. Can Roger Dubuis bounce back? Yes, but I think the problem with Roger Dubuis is that it's a poor man's Richard Mille without actually being priced at a poor man's level. And that's an expression we have in the States, the poor man's XYZ. Roger Dubuis watches, after the buyout by Richemont, were on a trajectory to compete with Richard Mille. And that's why with today's skeleton watches, aggressive sports models, motorsports and automotive co-branding, rubber straps, that's really what Roger Dubuis is trying to be. And it's kind of a shame because Roger Dubuis invested hugely in the late 90s and early 2000s in the ability to make its own cases, make its own movements, not just bridges and plates, but also hairsprings, escapements, and balances. So what you're getting from Roger Dubuis, even at the entry level, is generally a much more substantial product than the assembly of Valjean cases, G&F Chatelain clasps, Vaucher base movements and Dubois de Praz complications that you get when you buy a mass-produced Richard Mille. You're actually getting a very substantial in-house product and a deeply in-house product from a vertically integrated manufacturer when you buy a Roger Dubuis. The problem is their depreciation and the fact that there is no longer a Mr. Dubuis to sell the dream of the brand. Richard Mille is not a watchmaker. Mr. Dubuis was. Richard Mille is a marketer and a career businessman. I want to say he came over from Swiss Festina, all of which is to say he has been a hype salesman his entire life. And the problem Dubuis has is that it is trying to chase a phantom. Unless you have Richard Mille, you cannot be Richard Mille. Dubuis would be well served to bring back the old homage and sympathy lines. Don't get rid of the high-end oversized sports watch stuff. Still offer those because there's a market for it and you've got a clientele. But bring back the watches people love from the Sogem days, the 1995 to 1999 era, when the watches seemed almost like a hipper, younger Patek Philippe with enamel dials, retrograde perpetuals, Geneva hallmark, and Besançon Observatory chronometer certificates, when they had shaped cases with shaped dials, with shaped bezels, with shaped sapphires. People love those watches and they're no longer cheap pre-owned. Just bring them back. You don't have to change a damn thing and you will have your brand on the way to recovery, selling a product that Richard Mille cannot credibly sell. He can't get smaller, he can't sell dress watches, he can't sell fine pieces, but Roger Dubuis still can and still should. Jumping right in, Helbop saying La Monégasque is the only Roger Dubuis I like, and it is itself an homage launched in 2011 to the old sympathy pieces from the 90s. And then we have a question from Rich Buddy. What do you think of the Franck Muller brand, Tim? Well, here's the thing. Franck has been gone for years, and at this point, Vorten Sermakas, who is the head of the brand, owns what's called Watchland, which is the extended manufacturer that encompasses Franck Muller, Custos, and a couple of smaller brands they own, as well as white label manufacture for some customers. The brand is about 20 years past its prime. Part of the reason for that is that a lot of the, I guess, hipness that Franck had during the 90s has sort of been absorbed by Richard Mille, which is now younger, cooler, more sports-oriented, more techy in its marketing. And I do think that going back to the well too many times with bigger cases, tonneau cases, Curvex cases, Franck Muller did one thing and then overdid that one thing. We haven't seen real innovation. Plus, people have figured out by now that not only is the master of complications himself off working as a consultant and not with the brand, but the watches themselves are mostly unremarkable mechanically. And I find something intellectually dishonest about writing master of complications on the back of a simple three-hand date watch when you've got a soprod movement in there. The guy to whom the title refers has left the company, and there isn't a single complication on the watch unless we're counting a jump date, and that's really pushing it. So, back to our regularly scheduled program, and Arturo asking, what do you think Breitling should do different this year? If you've seen the 765 AVI 1953, you can see part of what Breitling is doing new this year. It just launched in 3 different metals. Good looking watch, but I do think they need to advance the state of the art. The retro watches will not save their brand. Now, as I said, our regularly scheduled program, and these are really your moments. Your piece is on my pixels, your watch is on my box. Abdul R. dives into winter with his vintage Tudor Submariner in Germany's Black Forest. Simon H. uses his Rolex GMT Master 2 as directed, aloft over California. Engineer Wannabe, you and me both, Engineer Wannabe, floats over Niagara Falls with his Zenith Chronomaster El Primero 38. Tony M. of Vancouver sports his AP Royal Oak 15450 midsize, the best current Royal Oak, behind the wheel of a fine German road machine. How much do I love those red anodized magnesium shift paddles. Send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com. Okay, question from Ralph S. Put on your flame suits, folk. Taken in total, do you prefer Rolex or Omega watches, Tim? Okay, this is easy for me. Rolex or Omega watches? For me, it's Omega, and Omega by a mile. First, I buy them to own them, not to sell them, which is to say the speculation culture that surrounds the current Rolex collector community has no appeal to me. I also have a family history with Omega. My grandfather left me his Well, it was called an Omega Seamaster de Ville, made in the early 70s. It was a simple yellow gold dress watch, and I believe it was 10K rolled gold. His gift from Remington Electric Shaver for 25 years of repairing electric shavers. Next came my graduation watch, my Bond Seamaster, the 253180. Two watches that I will never move, which is to say I have an emotional attachment to the brand. Variety. Omega offers more than Rolex, both past and present. Think about it. Think about what Omega offers. Everything from the X33 multifunction pilot's watch, a real modern pilot's watch with more features than I can even master. And believe me, every time we have one of these things in stock, I dread the customer making a phone call and asking how to use it. I've done it, but it's the kind of thing you want to do once. Now, the Ploprof. Look at the range of the current catalog. Those two things exist side by side. The Ploprof is probably the most aggressive professional dive watch you can own, unless you're one of those very few people like James Cameron who gets to walk home with a Rolex prototype. And there's a tourbillon, and not just a tourbillon, but generations of them since 1994. You want a central tourbillon? You want a chronometer certified? You want a skeleton version of it? You want a coaxial? You can have all of these things. They're all handmade and hand finished. This is a realm in which Rolex simply does not play, and the prices at which these things sell used are scandalously low for the handmade watch that you're getting. Also, think about Omega's real strength aesthetically. The one thing Omega does better than anyone else in mainstream luxury watches, and that is dials. Think about all the Omega specialist dials there are. There are aventurine dials. The blue side of the moon aventurine. There's a malachite dial. In fact, a malachite dial on several different case metals in the Seamaster 300. There's the lapis lazuli version. There's black enamel, not just enamel, but black enamel. They also do white, they also do red. And solid platinum dials, not on a limited edition, but on a mainstream mass-produced watch. And that's before we even mention the brand's signature solid ceramic, as you'll find on the Diver 300 meter, and titanium dials, as you'll find, for example, on the Ploprof. Omega dials are best in the world, with variety that no one, even the haute de gamme brands, can match. And there's tech. You have the coaxial, invented by George Daniels in 1974, industrialized by Omega in 1999, and now 21 years into production, it's everything George Daniels envisioned. More accurate, more stable in the long term, reducing the power reserve requirement and increasing the power reserve longevity, and increasing the maintenance intervals of the watch. One of the reasons Omega today has a blanket 5-year warranty on its watches, a 5-year warranty that matches Rolex. But look what else they've got, the silicone hairspring. From a mainstream mass-produced watch, from a mass-producing watch brand that will be around forever with replacement parts, I'm actually okay with silicone, because Omega, as I mentioned, will be around forever with endless new old stock parts if you do have to replace that silicone anti-magnetic hairspring. And not just anti-magnetic, amagnetic. Patek Philippe doesn't boast that its silicone hairspring watches are amagnetic. They're anti-magnetic. Omega says amagnetic. Plus, look at what they've got, twin barrel movements. There's less of a drop off in amplitude from full wind to 24 hours on an Omega caliber 8500 or 8900 than there is a Rolex 3135 or Rolex 3235. Because of the single barrel, there will always be limitations on amplitude after 24 and 48 hours with the Rolex, limitations that the Omega does not bear quite so acutely. And finally, we have ceramic cases, multifunction high horology quartz, if you want them, from Omega, plus vintage models from Omega, starting in good condition in the hundreds of dollars, with many options from many reputable sellers. If you're willing to spend thousands, you can get a vintage complication like the Memomatic Alarm. And again, if you're buying a modern Omega, same warranty and quality as Rolex, no dealer wait for virtually all models, and excellent pre-owned buys to the point that I would recommend just buying a used Omega a year old that still has 4 years of warranty. So if you ask me, what do I like better, Rolex or Omega? I would put my money where my mouth is and buy an Omega. I think the brand has more going for it. Obviously, it's not great for speculators, but what is not good for speculators, conversely, is great for collectors. Read from the chat right here. Aaron Cullen saying Omega Seamaster 300 with black ceramic case is my choice. That is a great choice and my favorite Omega of last year. 43.5 millimeters, black ceramic, no date, black ceramic dial, and titanium hardware. The Provincial Gentry saying, I respect Rolex's commitment to their legacy. Omega can be a bit spastic at times with their direction. This is true. Jean-Claude Beaver, he of the toothy grin, saying, I bought a Rolex a little while ago, but I am starting to regret it a little because of what the brand is doing. Thinking of flipping, anyone else feel the same? Hey, if you're going to flip, now is the time. And TD mentioning that not all coaxial movements are METAS certified. That is true. That is correct. There are coaxial movements dating back to 1999 now, and those first examples certainly were not METAS, though they were COSC. Then we have a question from Just James. What do you think about the Breguet Classique 7147? I like it in some of its exotic dial variants, and he's also asking, or a Patek Calatrava. I think you're going to get a better buy with the Breguet because of their depreciation. There are a lot of different Calatravas. I think if you're talking a 5296 sector dial, that's a very desirable watch. That's a piece that I enjoy a great deal. If I were thinking about buying a Patek Calatrava, though, I think I'd go for a reference 6000, and I'd go with the 6000 with the jet black dial. It's a real cool watch. Of course, there is a subsequent larger 6006, but I think I'd go with the standard 6000 black dial because it looks like a watch modeled after a 1950s speedometer, and with the micro rotor caliber 240, that is the upscale Patek automatic movement. It's not a 324 center rotor, so I'd go with a 5000G black dial, or excuse me, 6000G black dial. That would be my choice. And then right here, I can see Blake Starr saying, buy that Classique instead. And Scott Roberts saying, Omega Seamaster 120s are sweet for the price. And then Lifeless Person saying, have an all Rolex collection and you get stereotyped, maybe fairly. That said, I do appreciate Rolex connoisseurship, and a lot of guys who are deeply into the brand also regret what's going on in the secondary market and at authorized dealers right now. So I'm not going to necessarily blackball those guys from the hobby. A lot of them have very realist and very relatable attitudes toward what's going on in the Rolex market at the moment. RNS fan saying, just picked up a brand new 2020 Omega Seamaster Professional Blue Dial. My first luxury purchase. The dial is amazing. Congratulations. Wear it in great health. Monday mailbag at thewatchbox.com. Send me a wrist shot too. Okay, jumping right in, I can see, boom, Dustin Van Patten, Tim Mosso, how long has it been as a one-watch man? I've been wearing this one Zin Easy M 1.1 since late 2018. I do kind of have to get a move on restoring my collection. And maybe we'll have a whole episode about what I'm thinking. But first, Tim Stevens, Milgauss thoughts. There are the modern Milgauss models, and then there's everything else. There's the 6541, the 6543, and the 1019. Those are all blue chip collectibles. They're worth a lot of money, purchased from a reputable dealer that backs the watch forever because counterfeits exist. So do Franken watches. There's a lot of price gouging, and there are also some watches that are in ugly shape being palmed off for way too much cash. Then there are the modern post-2007 Milgausses. Those are used watches. I'm only seeing movement pre-owned on one of them, which is the white dial version that was discontinued about 7 years ago. Okay, we got Paul B, first time logging into the chat from the Philippines. Well, welcome and thanks for getting up early with us. Jumping back to the program, our main feature, collectible watches of the 2000s, part 1. Next week we'll feature our part 2. Now these aren't investment watches because I hate to use the term. Buy what you like, buy what you love, buy what you want to keep, not sell. And I hate to pollute the passion with a fixation on returns. Think about how ridiculous this whole notion would be in other areas of our lives where we seek nothing but enjoyment. I never took a vacation, bought a dog, raced or rode 100 miles on a bike with my friends because I thought it would make me money after the fact. I did it for the experience, and some of these things cost almost nothing, some cost thousands of dollars, but it was all about how I felt. during and after the experience, and that's how I buy my watches. So watch collecting is the same thing. Unlike all of the foregoing diversions, watches do retain some value. Good luck on the residual value for your 25-year-old dog. But we collect for reasons far divorced from illusions of profit. Herewith, the first half of the 2000s and collectible, not investment, but interesting, worthwhile watches from each year of the 2000s, starting with the year 2000, the new millennium. Whether you agree that the year 2000 was in fact the first year of the new millennium, the 2000 Patek Philippe Gondolo 5100 was probably the hippest watch that came out that year. Sean, can we go full screen with that? Because these watches are really good looking. There were 4 models, 3,000 in total, 1,500 in yellow gold, 750 in rose gold with slate dial. There were 450 in white gold with a blue sunburst dial, and then there were 300 with a black dial in platinum. Lovely pieces. That PT950 model in black is an absolute grail. I haven't even seen one, and in this job, I see everything. 10-day power reserve. Do you like movements? You're gonna love this one. If the 5100 10-day tourbillon is out of reach, this is mechanically its close relative. 10-day power reserve. Twin mainspring barrels. Pivot jewels set in chaton. Finger-style train for the drivetrain leading to the balance, which is free sprung. A COSC certified Swiss chronometer. In spite of the 10-day power reserve, it's very difficult to get a long power reserve watch to earn a chronometer certificate. And Geneva hallmark, a double certification chronometer. And note the perfect sizing and shaping of the movement, as it is perfectly fit to that caseback and designed for that watch. A lovely manta ray case derived from the historic 1950s Patek Philippe reference 2554. What are we talking price-wise? Well, prices for this Patek Classic start at about $25,000 in yellow gold. They rise to about $30,000 in rose gold. Figure that for white gold, it's going to cap out around $35,000. The platinum watch is a timepiece apart, and there's going to be a huge price delta at $60,000 to $65,000. A lot of money. But you're talking about a watch that is immensely more beautiful in its finish and its design than a Nautilus bought used for the same price. That Nautilus will not have a 10-day reserve, that Nautilus will not be a chronometer, and that Nautilus will not be a series of 300 pieces. So if you can go with the platinum, please do. And if you just want to get into an awesome Grand Slam type high horology piece for 25 grand, or roughly what people are paying for used steel Rolex Daytonas, the yellow gold watch is properly sized and proportioned, not a giant at 46.9 millimeters lug to lug. It wears well on any wrist. This was the best and most collectible watch that I could think of from the 2000 model year. And remember, that was the model year that the in-house Daytona arrived. 2001, a watch we almost forget exists. What's the coolest watch you can buy for 25 grand? Well, in 2001, it didn't cost 25 grand, rest assured. But the legacy of the 2001 Glasuta Original Pano Retrograph is the finest high horology watch you can buy for the money. Simply put, nothing else like it exists in the world of mechanical watches. Platinum, white gold, and rose gold models like the one you just saw. Caliber 60 was designed clean sheet for this watch, and it can go toe-to-toe with the Longa Datograph 951 movement for total refinement, which means both architecture, aesthetics, and finish, plus the engineering element, which is inseparable from the reason we love watches. So a flyback chronograph, you better believe it. A programmable countdown timer, it was that too. A countdown timer with a chiming alarm, oh yes, it was that, and entirely hand-finished. The watch was all of these things in a 39.4 millimeter case that, again, you could buy 50 pieces in platinum, 250 pieces in white gold, or unlimited in rose gold with both black and silver dials from which to choose. This glasuta is priced right, as I have seen these trade hands for about $20,000 in rose gold, which is scandalous considering what you are getting with this watch. The most sophisticated chronograph movement of the first half of the 2000s, and one of the finest, most beautifully proportioned German-style manual wind chronographs to be had, and yes, that includes the datograph. This thing is a bargain at 25 grand in rose gold. Figure on 35 grand max to get it in platinum. And then right here we have a Tippy K saying, ah yes, the Lange aesthetic done right. You are correct to attribute that aesthetic to Lange, as they pioneer what we now call German watch style. And then right here we have Marcus asking, Tim, have you ever considered being a mono-brand collector? Was thinking JLC would be a good fit for you. Oh, Mark, you have some back catalog videos to watch. and you're right, by the way. And then right here, we have Daryl asking, Tim, any news on Audemars Piguet? News to follow shortly. I have an inside line from Audemars Piguet, and I'll be sharing as soon as I know. Blake Starr mentioning the Pano retrograph is perfection, and I agree. My future collection will not be mono brand. It will be watches I think are cool and worth owning, and the Pano Retro will be in the quiver. Right here, we've got Young XLNC saying, think of a Zinn 556i or 857 UTC. Should I get in quick with the 556 or wait and save up to get the 857 UTC with all of its tech, like tegament, the captive bezel, the dehumidification, the extreme temperature tolerance? I would say save up and get the 857, because it seems like you're already invested in all that tech emotionally. And what happens is, if you have two watches that you want to buy, one is cheaper, one is more dear, and realistically you want the higher echelon timepiece, you always wind up buying the cheaper one, selling it, and then buying the one you really wanted. So if we're not talking too long a wait, I would say save up a bit more and buy the 857 UTC, and you'll be a happy man. And then right here, Geezer telling me there is a new code 1159. I look forward to seeing it. And of course, I always check the news before I go online, but sometimes it is just too hot off the press to make the broadcast. And then Yeti asking, Tim, would you swap a Rolex Pepsi for a Resonance 1R? Love the ruthenium. The 1R, of course, is the Type 1 with ruthenium dial. Yes, I would make that switch because I like Resonance. I like the people behind the company. I love the innovation of it, and there's always another Pepsi. Plus, independent horology is cool. The 95th Phantom recommending, Tim, you should get a Grand Seiko, and I think a Skyflake in particular might be in my future. Jumping back into our collectible 2000s watches, 2002, the JLC Master Compressor Memovox. When people ask me, what is the one watch I should own? I say this one. Why? Because it's everything you want. Stainless steel, a great brand, and I mean a great brand. 41 millimeters, the size is right, distinctive and not another re-edition. This is a diving alarm with an internal rotating bezel, so you've got the timing instrument and you've got the timer both in one watch. 100 meters water resistant with a manufactured chime and a manufacturer movement inside. The chime is hanging and suspended, so it has a lovely lyrical sustain and ring to it. With the internal bezel, you have both a timing instrument and diving capability. With the water resistance, you have go anywhere capability. With the size, it's universally wearable. And with the alarm and the loom, you have a wonderful travel companion. It is the true successor to the 1965 to 1970 Polaris diving alarm, and it manages to do that without being a hackneyed re-edition. This watch came out in 2002, and a lot of folks are already calling on JLC to bring back the original sized Master Compressor family. Value laden in stainless steel, figure $5,000 to $6,000 to get the watch in steel, $6,000 to $7,000 if you get it on the bracelet, which is a wonderful option. Killer in platinum. The platinum version is the best version, and if you can pony up the money, figure about $25,000 to get one of the 250 pieces in platinum with blue dial from before blue dial was a thing. I recommend that. Also, because those platinum models were before JLC started putting white gold clasps on platinum watches. That is double platinum. Figure on 25 grand in PT, 15,000 if you get it in rose gold or white gold. The white gold with a cool ruthenium dial, and then again about 5,000 to 7,000 in steel, depending on the age, the condition, the accessories, and whether you get it with the bracelet. Reading from the chat right here, Matt Foster saying, I love JLC sports watches, we need more. Right here, the 95th Phantom saying, I'd get a Reverso if I ever went JLC. And then we've got the King of Kludge asking, Tim, what's your opinion of JLC Reverso Grand Dot? There were a lot of Grand Reverso models from the 2000s. If you're going to get one with a Grand Dot, I recommend you get the Septentième, the 70th anniversary watch, which paradoxically came out on the 71st anniversary because it took longer to engineer the movement. The movement, which is rated as an 8-day, will run for more than 10. The watch is made of platinum. The dial is ruthenium coated. The movement itself is made of white gold and exquisite. So while there is a steel model with the Grand Date, with that Grand Reverso case from the 2000s, if you can get the 70th anniversary watch, do not hesitate. That is one of the finest high horology watches and one of the best JLC models ever made. And as something is saying, he is a fan of the Compressor crowns right here. And then we've got Tim G saying the JLC Polaris rocks. He is a fan. And then Mark S. mentioning that the Magali Metrier JLC pieces have a zany streak. She was the then very young 20-something designer of JLC men's watches during the 2000s, and she designed almost everything from the original master compressors right up to the Extreme Lab 2. So I think she's probably sort of in microcosm a future celebrity watch designer. We'll look back on her the way we look back on Jörg Heisek and the way we look back on Gerald Genta in 20, 30 years. She's still practicing though, so her story is not yet told. Jumping into the box, Mert S is asking, how will coronavirus affect prices? Well, it's a buyer's market right now in China and Hong Kong, but I don't think this thing is long term. I think in the long term, political instability in Hong Kong is going to be a question, but I also think that at some point, a combination of quarantines, alleviation measures, vaccines perhaps, and also with regard to the protests, plainclothes mainland Chinese security forces are probably going to kill off both the protests and the coronavirus. But in the short term, like I said, a buyer's market, and Hong Kong getting absolutely hammered, especially Swatch Group, which has 90 points of sale in Hong Kong and is uniquely dependent on the island market. We got Jason360 checking in from Montreal, Quebec. And then right now we have Daniel saying, you don't talk much about your love for JLC, or you're more of a Zin man now. We just talked quite a bit JLC right there, though yes, I am more of a Zin man right now. I'm wearing my Zin EZM 1.1, and I'm thinking of expanding the collection. Right here we've got Rick Foss joining in from Norway, and we have a question from Long Mac. Tim, is the Tudor alarm watch, the Heritage Advisor, a good alarm watch? Yes, it is. It is a universal piece. It is the most complicated Tudor ever made. It is their complication module on an ETA base, highly water resistant. The case is a hybrid of steel and titanium, so it's rugged. And I happen to find that it's probably the most practical watch and one of the least seen Tudor models in the catalog. Jumping back to the best of the 2000s, let's talk a little bit about the 2003 Omega Aquaterra Railmaster. Yet another reason why I love Omega, because they do crazy things like this. At 49.2 millimeters, this watch is out of this world. When I saw it back in cases in 2003, I thought, wow, that's a watch that Shaq would wear. It's almost as though Omega took the Railmaster theme all the way back to the era of the railroad pocket watch and then added lugs. The timepiece with a monstrous caliber 2201 chronometer caliber based on a heavily modified Unitas 6498-2. The watch had COSC chronometer precision, an extended 53-hour power reserve, 5-position adjustment, an impressive caseback vista, a properly sized caliber for its massive carapace, and serious 150-meter water resistance with lume. Again, I saw this watch back in 03, and the part that really took my breath away was how beautifully detailed it was. It was big in an era of big, but it was also nuanced and thoughtful and sensitive in the way it was treated front and back. The 157-piece white gold limited edition is the one to own if you're a serious Omega collector and you demand rarity. I saw this watch and, well, at the time, it was priced around the $5,000–6,000 range. Today, $3,000 to $4,000 will buy the watch in steel. Figure around $15,000 if you want the 157-piece limited edition in gold. Vacheron, the Overseas Generation 2. The 42mm chronograph is the one that built the overseas line, making the watch a must-have during the 2000s, helping Vacheron to expand both its volumes and its distribution. There is a sublime perpetual calendar, however, if you don't want the mainstream watch, and that's the US market limited edition. I want to say that was 20 pieces, a very special piece, reference 49020. I would also recommend that the hand-finished bracelet on this watch is a must-have, because even though the Generation 1 bracelet is beautiful, it's also prone to kinking and jamming, and the handy and feature-laden Generation 3 bracelet is less solid in the hand than the Generation 2 bracelet. Blue dials seem to be in demand, and this model offered them, but they're not commanding a discernible premium, so even if you're into this, you're probably not going to pay more for this than you would for the black or the silver dial. Prices start under $10,000 for a steel automatic and crest $45,000 for the stainless steel perpetual calendar chronograph. Expect that adding complications, adding bracelets, adding precious metal will increase the price, but you can get one of these for under $10,000 if you're just looking for a three-hand automatic, and about 14 grand for the chronograph on a strap, which is to say barely more than a brand new Rolex Daytona out of the dealer's case. And for that 14 grand, you're getting a Vacheron. Now, let's talk about the 2005 MIH watch, the one that got away. We had one in our inventory, and I should have bought it. Launched back in 2005, it was designed by industrial design maestro Christian Gaffner, built by AHCI co-founder Paul Gerber, and the annual calendar system, reversible with 9 pieces, was designed by Ludwig Oxlin, formerly of Ulysse and Ardennes, late of Ox und Junior. The watch was 42mm, 100 meters water resistant. It had a case-back chronograph with monopusher, the annual calendar, and it wears like a lugless watch, almost completely lugless across the wrist, which means it fits anyone. Expect to pay $5,000 to $6,000 for one of these pre-owned, and if you see it, don't be this guy or that guy. Buy it immediately, because it's one of the coolest watches ever made and a truly timeless style that will never look dated. Now, jumping into viewer wrist shots, Ben S. celebrates the arrival of pitchers and catchers at MLB Spring Training for 2020. That is awesome, that composition. John D. is properly dressed with his JLC Grand Reverso calendar from Goffberg. Thank you for trusting our company. Looking dapper there. Franklin K. of South Carolina coordinates his Black Bay 58 with leather strap and matching Patel cigar. Michael L. steals the show with my favorite watch of the bunch, a JLC Master Compressor Memovox in Platinum, recently purchased from Watchbox. I miss it dearly. Wear it in great health. Guys, remember, Tim Mosso at thewatchbox.com. All of your questions about purchasing watches, questions about pricing of watches you see on my social media, on Watchbox Reviews, and on our website. I refer you to that link. Link in the description. Win a Black Bay Bronze from Tudor. The contest expires on midnight of March 29th. I will be drawing the winner here. And remember, casting call for collectors. Email mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com if you live from Boston down to Washington, D.C., and you'd like to be sitting right here next to me in a collector conversation. Time out, Tim out. I'm going to watch the end of the Daytona 500, and thanks for logging on.